The first hidden spell interaction is with Web. Web covers an area in thick, flammable webbing that slows creatures within and possibly enwebs them. But by creating a web, it can actually act as a soft surface to jump from a high place from, negating all falling damage. Use it on a patch of ground, then jumping onto that patch will cause no falling damage and it won't knock you prone. This is a great way to jump from high places when you don't have featherfall available. These spells can be used by the Ranger Spider Companion or as a Shapeshifted Druid as a spider, and both Sorcerers and Wizards have access to Web. The Ranger, Sorcerer, and Wizard have the best ability to pull this off, either as a Ranger being able to summon their spider at the bottom of a high cliff, and then casting the web successfully, or a Wizard or Sorcerer casting a web from above. However, the Druid would have to shapeshift, and then they actually won't always be able to jump down as a spider or cast it from above, because as a spider, they're going to be lower to the ground and might not actually have vision of where they need to do this. So next time you don't have featherfall, try using web instead. And if you like that tip, don't forget to click like and subscribe for more Baldur's Gate 3 videos. Coming in at number 2, we have Darkness and Fog Cloud. Now both Fog Cloud and Darkness blind and heavily obscure creatures within it. The obvious use is to prevent ranged attacks from entering an area, but you can also use Darkness and Fog to obscure an area you want to steal from and do other crimes within without consequence. This is really handy when you just really want that item that you want to steal right there, just sitting on that table, just begging to be stolen. Maybe you can't afford something and you need some quick gold, but you still want to be friendly with the town and you still want to be able to trade and do quests later without causing a run-in with the guards or a big fight. Darkness and Fog Cloud will be your cover to do your crimes, and then you're done doing your crime, you can just leave without consequence. All right, number 3, we have Ranger's Companion. This allows you to gain a beast companion that will help you on your quest and fight alongside you. Now I've noticed that this beast can cause different interactions, specifically with goblins depending on the animal. The boar seems to slightly attract goblins and they may attack it too. Wolf is similar in that it might get attacked, but it actually doesn't attract. Goblins won't go chasing after it. The big spider surprisingly doesn't cause as much fear as the familiar small spider, but it doesn't seem to provoke attacks like the other animals. Then the bear seems on the same level as the small spider in that they cause the goblins to actually run away in fear, but also it will be attacked if it wanders too close. I thought it was just really interesting how each animal causes a different response, and so you could actually use this when you're trying to either avoid combat or set up an ambush by scaring some goblins really far away from the others to get really good positioning. Depending on your goals, use a different animal and get the desired result you're going after. All right, number 4, we have Conjure Minor Elemental. Now this spell conjures a minor elemental, of course, to fight alongside you. Other summoning spells like Find Familiar, Animate Dead, and so on can all be used and then swapped out for a different spell as long as you're outside of combat. So basically do this and the summons will persist and you have a freed up spell slot for something else. I think this is just kind of a neat little trick, allowing you to get more spells usable than you might have thought at first glance if you just choose to use a summoning spell first and then switch to a different spell. Kind of cool, adds some extra value to these summoning spells. All right, number 5, we have Create or Destroy Water. It's on another list. So this calls forth rain, extinguishing exposed flames, and forms a water surface. Now, while this water surface has a ton of uses we talked about in our previous videos, the actual spell cast has an additional use. It can be used to reveal characters that are invisible. Of course, you still need to know in the general area that they are to be able to successfully cast on top of them, but if you do, use Create Water on them and their invisibility will actually be removed. So really, really cool, another use case for it. Then number 6, we have Sanctuary, right? Now we talked about this one again in a different list, but this makes you or an ally unable to be targeted until you attack or harm a creature. So you're basically invulnerable. You can't be attacked. This spell can actually be incredibly powerful in a number of different situations. You can use it on your healer because it doesn't break Sanctuary when healing. Even more importantly, you can use it after reviving or healing a downed teammate in battle since it's a bonus action. So the synergy is that a character comes back after being downed, they're probably gonna be at like 1 health or just a handful of hit points, and they're probably gonna spend their turn drinking a potion in the ending turn. So just having that protection so that right when they get back, they don't get downed immediately is just perfect, and then they're probably not going to be attacking on their turn anyways, and so I just think it's a perfect use case. Use Healing Word, then Sanctuary or something along those lines in order to get a character back from being downed and then protected. Awesome combo. Also, if you have a character that uses a concentration spell purely for support, support, whether that's bless or hold person, using Sanctuary on that person will essentially make them almost impossible to have their concentration broken, which can be super useful in the right scenarios. And you could even use Sanctuary and then place a glyph of warding to inflict AoE damage, and that's actually not going to cause you to lose Sanctuary because it wasn't you, it was the glyph. So this works great if you're going also to be a summoner. If you create a mage hand and that's not going to break Sanctuary, then the mage hand can then actually like attack, it can push, it can throw objects that can harm your enemy while you continue to either animate dead or conjure some other minion. So Sanctuary, in my opinion, is a great spell to have almost all the time for both healers and casters who primarily summon. What a powerful spell. Also, while Sanctuary might make you untargetable, it actually does not protect you from falling damage in any way. Tested that out, but you will keep the buff after the fall after you take that damage. All right, number 7, we have Enlarge/Reduce. Now this benefits you in combat by making your target larger to increase their weapon damage by 1d4 and gain advantage on strength checks and saving throws, or do the opposite to an enemy. Now outside of combat, reducing your size when combined with Disguise Self as a gnome, halfling, or dwarf, you can actually make your character small enough to be able to enter small burrow holes. Now you've likely come across small burrow holes and you might not have known what to do with them. Well, this is one way to see what's on the other side. Not only that, but reducing your teammate size can also make them small enough to be thrown by a teammate to either get in or out of a dangerous situation, or even to deal some damage to an enemy. Maybe you want to throw your character into combat. Maybe they're a dwarf barbarian or something, or halfling barbarian, and you just throw them, it'll do some damage and they're going to be in melee range. So this spell is very flexible with more uses than you might think. Number 8 is Grease. Now when I first saw this spell, I actually wasn't even that big of a fan of it. What it does is that it covers the ground in flammable grease, becomes difficult terrain, and can make creatures within it fall prone. This spell is actually pretty underrated. It can serve multiple purposes, knocking enemies prone, but more likely forcing enemies to avoid where you created the grease, allowing you to funnel them a certain way if you wanted. So the AI typically tries to avoid walking over the grease, which makes a lot of sense. And what I think is the best part about grease, of course, is that it's flammable, and the Firebolt cantrip is extremely common in Baldur's Gate 3. Astarion gets it, Gale gets it, Shadowheart has it. So there's a ton of sources for Firebolt, and so you're very likely to already have fire ready to light the grease on fire and burn everyone in it. And what's really cool about grease is that if there's already a small amount of fire burning, you can actually really increase the distance of that fire by casting grease on top of it. Just have a little bit of the grease cast overlap so that the fire is going to spread to the full radius of the grease, and so that can actually really make the fire much bigger as well if there's already some fire. So grease has a lot of different uses that I think is actually really, really cool. And a lot of the time the enemy is just barely avoiding, the fire, and so if you cast grease, it's gonna basically bring the fire to them. So it can be a very surprise attack on them, casting grease right on top of them with a little bit of overlap on the fire. So grease I think is a lot better than you might think. Then finally at number 8 we have Ray of Frost and Arrow of Ice. These cause ice damage and either slows movement speed by 3 meters and or creates an ice surface. So of course it can put out fire, which can be very helpful, but as a side effect, it isn't just going to leave behind ash after the fire has been put out. It's actually going to create a water surface. Of course, it's very helpful for avoiding fire damage from that fire surface, but this is also great because water can be used with lightning to cause extra damage to enemies, and it can create a very hazardous patch of ground. The water, of course, can either later be frozen or used in a multitude of different ways to combo your enemy. So that's my list of 9 spells that have a couple hidden extra interactions than you might think of at first glance. Let me know if I missed anything or there's any that you know about in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.